If you clicked on this video, you have probably already heard all the usual things about being a highly sensitive person. That you feel deeply, that you get overwhelmed easily, that you're empathetic, intuitive, emotionally intense. But there is something most people don't talk about. Exhaustion that comes from constantly having your experience dismissed. The invisible weight of surviving in a world that often feels too loud, too fast, and too much. The constant effort of masking just to get through the day. By the way, my name is Anna. I am a researcher and a public health educator, and I have also experienced many of these things myself. That's why I created this channel, to bridge the gap between research and high sensitivity and the realities of the everyday life. But before we dive in, I've also put together a gentle companion guide with practical reflections and supportive tools for what we will explore today. You can find it below if it feels helpful. And now, let's talk about what nobody tells you. Nobody tells you how much damage the phrase "you're too sensitive" can actually do. It sounds small, casual, harmless. But when you hear it repeatedly from friends, family, co-workers, and partners, something shifts inside you. You begin questioning your own perceptions. You start minimizing your reactions. You apologize for your emotions. You wonder if you're overreacting, even when something genuinely hurts you. Over time, this creates what psychologists call self-invalidation, when you start dismissing your own internal signals before anyone else even has the chance to. Research in emotional regulation shows that suppressing emotions doesn't reduce them. In fact, it increases physiological stress response. Higher cortisol, increased heart rate variability, more fatigue. So, what can you do? Instead of asking, "Am I overreacting?" try asking, "What is my nervous system responding to right now?" Write it down. What happened? What did I feel? What might this feeling be trying to protect? This shifts you from judgment to curiosity. And, as you might guess, studies in self-compassion show that self-validation reduces anxiety and increases resilience. You don't need everyone to agree with your feelings. You need to stop abandoning yourself. One of the things nobody tells you about being a highly sensitive person is how early you learn to hide it. Not because you're fake, but because at some point it felt easier to be acceptable than to be fully seen. So you adapt. You smile when you're overstimulated. You say, "I'm fine," when something actually affected you. You downplay your reactions so that things don't get uncomfortable for other people. You might even rehearse what you're going to say before conversations, just to make sure it lands the right way. And at first, this is something you do consciously. But over time, it becomes automatic. You don't even notice how much you're adjusting yourself. You don't even notice how often you are filtering your reactions, managing your tone, adjusting your expressions. And that's when it gets exhausting. Because you're not just tired from life, you're tired from managing how you're perceived in it. Research in emotional suppression shows that when we consistently hide or down-regulate our internal experience, it does not disappear. It accumulates in the body. And that's why something small can suddenly feel like too much. Not because it was too much, but because you're holding too much in. So what can you do? Not everything needs to change at once. Start small. Instead of, I'm fine, try, I think I'm a little overstimulated. I just need a moment. Instead of, it's not a big deal, try, that actually mattered to me. Research on authenticity and well-being shows that even small increases in balance between inner and outer self reduce stress markers. You don't need to be fully unfiltered everywhere, but you do deserve a few spaces where you're not constantly editing yourself. Because masking protects you socially, but over time, it disconnects you from yourself. But even if you were fully yourself, the world you're living in would still feel like too much sometimes. We live in a time of constant exposure. News cycles, social media crisis update, war, illness, injustice, and conflict. For a highly sensitive nervous system, this isn't just information, it's immersion. And the hardest part is you don't just see what's happening. You almost feel responsible for it, even when you're not. Many HSP women say they feel like they're carrying the emotional weight of the world, even when nothing personal happened to them that day. That's not weakness. Highly sensitive individuals process stimuli more deeply at a neurological level. That depth of processing is a strength, but without boundaries, it becomes overload. So, what can you do? Instead of trying to stay informed all the time, experiment with one designated news window per day. No emotional content before bed. 24-hour pause before engaging in heated discussions. This is not avoidance. It's nervous system stewardship. Pair this with something regulating. A 10-minute walk in the nature. Listening to instrumental music. Viewing art. 5 minutes of slow breathing. Nature exposure alone has strong evidence for lowering cortisol levels and improving mood regulation. HSPs don't need more stimulation. They need rhythm. And now comes the part that many people don't connect at all. How much of this ends up in your body? This is something that's not really discussed. Being highly sensitive is not just emotional. Many HSP women struggle with chronic fatigue, insomnia, muscle tension. When your nervous system processes everything so deeply, it also takes longer to reset. And chronic overstimulation can sometimes show up as symptoms that are difficult to fully explain. And while it's always important to rule out physical causes with a healthcare professional, nervous system overload is something that many HSPs tend to overlook. So maybe next time, instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" try asking, "How overloaded has my nervous system been?" Instead of waiting for burnout, try building small moments of recovery into your day. Things like 5 minutes of silence between the meetings, gentle stretching before bed, reducing background noise at home, wearing softer fabrics to minimize sensory irritation. These things may seem small, but for a highly sensitive nervous system, small adjustments add up. Recovery is not something HSPs should wait to earn after exhaustion. It's something they need consistently. Highly sensitive people don't need to become stronger. They often just need to recover more intentionally and allow their nervous system to finally exhale. So, if you've been trying to handle all of this on your own, this is what nobody talks about. Because many highly sensitive women find themselves to be the one who understands everyone else, the one who notices, supports, adjusts, but rarely the one being held the same way. And over time, that imbalance becomes exhausting. HSPs need the right environments: steady, thoughtful, emotionally intelligent spaces. Social baseline theory suggests that simply being around safe and supportive people lowers perceived threat levels in the brain. Your nervous system begins to settle. It starts to co-regulate, which means you don't just need solitude. You need the right people. People who don't require you to shrink in order to stay connected. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I'm building this channel. Not just to share information, but to create a community of kind, thoughtful, reflective women who want a life that's peaceful on the inside, not just successful on the outside. Women who are learning to replace self-doubt with self-trust and to create more harmony between who they are and the world they live in. If that resonates with you, stay here, engage, share your thoughts in the comments below. You were never meant to carry all of this alone. And in fact, that's also why I am in a bit of a listening phase right now. As a researcher and a public health educator, I care deeply about grounding what I share in evidence. But as a highly sensitive woman, I care just as deeply about grounding that in lived experience. Because behind every concept or research paper, there are real people quietly carrying things that often go unseen. And if you could relate to what I share today, I would truly love to hear your story. I've opened a few time slots in my calendar for short, free interview calls. This really is just a conversation because I'm trying to understand this experience more deeply through people actually living it. I want to understand. What feels hardest to you? What helps? What you wish existed to support you? If you feel safe sharing that with me, the link to schedule is below. And if you're not ready for that yet, a downloadable companion guide summarizing this video in the description below is a great starting point. Being highly sensitive is not a flaw to fix. It is a nervous system that feels deeply, processes thoroughly, and cares profoundly. But without understanding and support, it can become draining. If you take nothing else from this video, I want you to remember this. You are not dramatic. You are not weak. You are not broken. You simply need alignment between your sensitivity and your environment, between your self-understanding and how you respond in the world. And that alignment is something we can build intentionally. And this needs to be talked so much more about. If this video made you feel seen, let me know in the comments with a simple I relate. I'm really glad you're here, and I look forward to continuing these conversations together.